brings you better conversation about your quality of life.
Let everyone know you listen to
The New Orleans Talk Network.
Well, welcome. Good morning. And you're watching New Orleans Talk Network. It's Wednesday morning, the Bob's Variety Hour. We are so excited about, we're constantly bringing you all new features, not only variety, and we introduced a while back chefs around the United States. We do the local show on Restaurant Review, which is New Orleans Central. Skype to our chefs in the United States. And I said, well, why should we be limited? Let's give it a try. And today is the debut of Chef Chat International. Really delighted about this. Now, we want to first of all beg your indulgence in case via Skype. Last week, if you watched our show, Talk to the Tarot, when we had the Tarot, she was actually in Hawaii instead of her normal California residence, and everything went smooth. This morning, a couple of drop calls, and he's going to be in and away from the microphone because he's tending to his kitchen. I mean, after all, first of all, we're going to, and I believe it's the right city, Edmonton, near London, England. All right, folks, all the way across the channel. They, poor things, have just come off of the ravages of something we're used to all the time, a tropical storm, Ophelia. And the important thing is I believe they're okay. And I see our chefs here. So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about his background, his restaurants. We're going to do our raffle after the break. And then after that, we're going to go dish through about 8 of his dishes. So you can see the kind of work they serve in England and particularly his specialty. So I'm proud to introduce to you this morning, and a big welcome to Chef Tim DeLa Cruz. Good morning, Chef. Or afternoon. It's afternoon now, right?
Yeah, it's afternoon here. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon already. Anyway, good morning. We're in Louisiana.
Notice the accent, folks. He's not from New Orleans. I hope you understand it. The slight accent. In fact, let's start this. Where exactly are you actually a native of England itself, or did you transplant there from somewhere else?
I was actually born and raised in the Philippines, and then my family actually migrated here in England.
And how old were you, or were you, when you actually came to England?
I've been here since I was 15 years old.
Oh. Well, you consider yourself, I'm sure, a native then, right? Almost.
Yeah, kind of. It's like half and half, like 50-50.
Now, and what do you want to tell us about yourself so people get to know a little bit about your personality? Anything before we get into your craft? Anything in particular about you, the person?
Me as a person is just basically, I've been a chef for 12 years now.
12 years, okay.
Worked with some top chefs here in England.
There you go.
Worked with some good Michelin star restaurants here in England.
Congratulations.
Yeah, basically, it's just my passion is cooking. I don't know anything else. If you ask me to change a light bulb, I will struggle. all I know is just cooking.
Well, it's been analogized to a wedding, or to a marriage, not to a wedding per se. That's the happy only part. But you get to do the dirty work as well as the pleasure. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly what I said to my missus as well. You marry a chef, you marry a uniform, you marry a restaurant. So.
Great. Well, now, I know you've worked at several restaurants, as you alluded to, in some of them directly. Your present restaurant was I correct at the intro that it's in Edmonton?
No, it's actually in Cockfosters.
And could you tell us what proximity that is to London? Because not a lot of us are familiar with all the areas nearby or beyond London, the well-known entity.
I live in Edmonton. But the restaurant is based here in Cockfosters, so basically it's in northern part of England, of London. So it's like about half an hour away from the city.
Half an hour, so. Close enough. And you've been at this, and we're going to show it in a minute. You've been at this restaurant how long, sir?
I've been here for nearly 3 months now.
Okay, excellent. All right, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a look and listen? about your new quarters before we start talking about dishes. And I love the name of your kitchen, well, really your restaurant, but it's called Skewd, Skwd Kitchen. Is that correct?
Actually, the meal. So this restaurant has been open for 5 years now.
I got it.
The way we do things here is actually a modern take on Turkish cuisine. Because sometimes people think like when you say Turkish cuisine, it's only like meat and a stick.
Yes.
Like a doner kebab, But there's so much beyond that. So the challenge that he actually said to me is like, let's modernize the cuisine that we have here, and let's spread it out all throughout London. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve for an excellent Turkish food, but it's not gonna be your typical Turkish food because it's gonna have like different flavors, different techniques. I do believe that any cuisine can actually do well as same as French.
Well, as I first was introduced to you through most of the international chefs, it's through the pictures, either of Instagram, Facebook, or some combination. Not knowing anything about your background or your specialty, but looking at the beauty of your dishes and the variety of such dishes. And I have to admit, I did not get any inkling per se that your forte was Turkish cuisine because of the variety of the stuff that you are serving at Skewd Kitchen. So that's what lured me to you. That's what lured me to ask you to try and be our introductory chef. And we're going to show those folks, I think, some fabulous food today. Now let's talk. You can see it's a very contemporary, slick. We posted the facade of your restaurant in. But we want to go inside a little bit. So we've got some still pictures of the restaurant. And Mike, why don't we move forward? Let's take a look through the doors, what we got. And by the way, folks, after we go through this, at the end of the show, there we go. Look how pretty. Chef, you can talk about this, anything before, if you want to mention anything about it. The interior of the chef, like seating capacity, or please give us any information you want about your lovely interior.
Yeah, the interior is actually designed by a good friend of ours. His name is Joe Roberts. The whole motto or the whole aspect of the restaurant is Anatolian cuisine. So basically we represent Turkey, but in a much more modern way. The name Skewd actually came from a game called Pickup Sticks. So basically, it's basically from, like, when you say skewed as well, it's actually like meat on a stick, But we're actually trying to break it. That's why the spelling and the writing is different.
Got it.
It's not your typical Turkish restaurant. So, and the interior, if you actually go here, because basically here in England, when you go to a standard Turkish restaurant, all they do is like big platters of meat, big platters of this. So we're actually trying to refine dishes. It's not just like the typical.
I think that's excellent. There's no need throwing out any traditions. It's better to infuse or work together with other situations, because not only do you appeal to a broader audience, but it just preserves those things that we all grew up with or understood, especially if you're the chef. Now, I don't know if I heard you. Approximately how many does your restaurant seat?
The restaurant can seat up to 80 covers per one go.
Okay, nice.
So sometimes we do, like on a busy weekends, we do turn around like the restaurant 1.5 times. Sometimes we do about 150 covers for dinner. So and plus it's an all-day dining.
Excellent. I hate to ask this because this could be a tough or an easy question. What really lured you to cooking or to the culinary arts?
It's actually on my DNA already. Okay. Since the first ever dish that I ever cooked was since I was 8 years old. Watching my mom and my auntie having a catering business back in the Philippines, and it kind of like there's a lot of curiosity behind it. Being a chef and being a cook, it's not just like cooking. There's so much behind it.
Right.
You need to have a strong mental game. You need to have a strong physique. You need to have the creativity. For me, the most important part is the creativity.
Oh,
and
definitely.
what actually makes sense. Like our chefs, I don't want to criticize, but I do believe that our chefs like trying to put too much on their plate. You know, they're trying to do like 17 elements on a plate. For me, does it really make sense to have 17 elements on a plate? You know, for me, it's just, you know, you do put like 4 elements or 3 elements, but those 3 or 4 elements are perfect. Executively, it's going to be executed perfectly. You know.
I think it's great. In fact, well, two things. One, it's creativity, because today is, I think, the credo of almost every chef in the world. When I was growing up many years before your birth, you know, it was just the opposite. It wasn't so much creativity. It was following that recipe. That meant you had to always emulate consistency. It was the same dish, and everybody got used to it. They wanted it that way, and they didn't want any other dish in that dish. They, you know, never moved out of their comfort zone here in America. I don't know about other areas. But nowadays, it's just the opposite. I know when I first started my show back in 2000 or 1999, really, I asked, in those days, many of the chefs never left the kitchen. You didn't know them. They were kept, as I called it, in the closet. Today, the chef is the restaurant, and many of them the owners, as well as certainly the voice, the face, and, of course, the food of the eatery. I'm glad to hear also that you started with your traditional, you learned, because back in America, I know in the Southern tradition, that was the way a lot of our chefs started, clinging to their mothers or grandmothers, maybe apron strings or whatever you want to call it, and finding out how she cooked for their family. Today, that's moving a little bit away from that. Everything's on the credentials, which, of course, you should need to have to know the basics. But at the same time, it's that passion, that desire that started early on and usually imbued from what you said, from a family situation where you first started the influence in your own family and followed that and realized that that's what you wanted to do. Okay. Anything else? Because we're going to do our break. We're going to try and limit our breaks to 1, 2. Usually we do 3 on a regular show if it's not a long distance show like this. I know we'll do no more than 2. We have to do this first one, and if you don't mind, we're going to go do it. As I mentioned, you might not be familiar with our show, but I mentioned in the beginning, we give away sometimes minor gifts, sometimes big things, whatever. Either we get donations or whatever, but we've done a free raffle since day one. And so every week we either show the winner, we always try and show the winner of the previous weeks, and we also introduce it. So bear with us. When we come back from the commercial break, we'll go right into that. Just be a couple of minutes, and then we're going to head in and actually start looking at your dishes, and we're going to appreciate any comments you can make to heighten, because the visuals are certainly there, but we certainly would like to know some of the ingredients we're guessing at, or even some of the entrees. So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll see you in a little bit, Chef, and the audience. We'll see you in a few minutes and bring the raffle to you, okay? All right.
Awesome.
In the month of October, we honor those who we have loved and lost, and all of us who remain in the fight, the warrior angels. New Orleans Talk Network and Boomers Lifestyle Network present the 2017 Warriors Angels fundraiser for the Susan G. Komen For the Cure, Thursday, October 19th, 2017, 6 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. at the New Orleans Talk Network, 7601 West Bank Expressway, Marrero. There will be food, networking, and entertainment. All are invited. We will never stop fighting. We will never forget. I'm living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden.
What is New Orleans Talk Network? It's today's hottest topics with an added flair. You get ready, because the conversation will be hot, and better yet, mobile. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app, available on Android, iPhone, iPad, and you can listen to us on the web at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com. Write down our talk line at 504-341-TALK. That's 504-341-8255. Interactive and worldwide. That's what we are. Join in on the real conversation and tell a friend about the New Orleans Talk Network.
up, readers and shakers? It's your girl, Rhonda M. Lawson, sending you a personal invite to the Literary Lounge. Tune in to Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions each Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for the best in literary conversation. Each week, a different author will join us to talk to their most important readers, you. You can also call in to ask your own questions. So don't forget, each Wednesday at 7 p.m., join us in the lounge for Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. See you there.
Hi, I'm Linda Lewis with Lewis Armstrong Family Services here live at New Orleans Talk Network. We're here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Come join us. Thank you.
Conversation about your quality of life.
Let everyone know you listen to
The New Orleans Talk Network.
Welcome back to our first episode of Chef's Chat International. That's right, folks. We're coming live to you today, half of us anyway, from outside of London, England. This is our first episode of starting to deal with international chefs, and we are so pleased to have our chef with us. As you know, when we come back from break, though, we have a little pressing business we always go through, and that is our little weekly raffle. Now, last week's raffle, which chefs might be interested in, it's a little late, was not claimed. And that's the second week in a row. So after 2 weeks, we dispose of it some other way by giving it to anyone who wants it. Maybe a chef wants it. But it's a little miniature brass collection. It looks like a Turkish samovar, I want to say that, and miniature goblet. So it's great for a collector. It's not usable, of course, but great for children, little girls who want to have a fake tea party or something like that. Anyway, get in touch with me if you want it, and we'll see how we can do. But today we're starting a new one, and we do just with the variety of the guests and the shows. We also do a variety in our raffles. Sometimes tickets to the Jazz Fest, art. We've had magnificent pieces, and then just something either from my collection or anything. So we're doing literature again today, and I picked out 4 books from my library, and not that they're all, and their variety is again. The first one you're seeing up there, I'm going to hold it here, but this is basically not only a biography of a very famous, I hate to say painter, but let's say lithographer named James Montgomery Flagg, who was very, very popular during the war, during the early wars, and did a lot of, in those days, posters and things the United States would do to not pacify, but to inspire patriotism. And so he was very famous, as this, of course, very famous picture of Uncle Sam, which we've seen it in so many replications. Well, not only in that, there's a lot of his sketch work, his biography, and he also did a lot of black and white or pencil or charcoals of portraits of people famous and not so famous during the year. So it's an interesting book for your coffee table for a read. Our second one is a little bit more in today's vein, even though it's not necessarily chef's forte, but a book on salads. It's certainly something I love, soups and salads. I never liked before I was married, and that's the only thing I carried with me with happy thoughts after the divorce. So this has got beautiful color pictures, how-to. Salads are popular certainly in summer, which we're just coming out of, but all year. So this is a beautiful book. The chef's back there giving you whoever he is. I'm sorry I'm not recognizing his name, but the salads are well worth it with the beautiful illustrations. Now, if you want to go into political vein, this is a book I acquired that came out a few years after 9/11, and it's a complete report. So for those political junkies, disaster junkies, I don't know, anyone who wants to know more about these, whether it's a conspiracy or true facts, this book is really, even though it's a paperback, it's pretty damn complete. So if you're interested in that, and of course we all were, even though there's a distance, there's still a lot of importance to reading and following up on this. And lastly is more of a collector's item as well. This is it's in not fabulous condition. I've forgotten the date on it, but it's either early 1900s or right at 1800s. It's a paperback, and it's actually the 100 best songs of a certain period of time, and it's their music as well as their the vocals or the script. So, like I say, this is much more of a collector's item than something you would read every day. Now, of course, if you're musically inclined, especially with the holidays coming up, you might want to check this out. It'd be great for you maybe to introduce a couple to the Christmas party, the Thanksgiving luncheon that we do. Anyway, you get the choice of whatever books you want if you are the winner. So real quickly, remember our raffle is a one-time registration. You register once, you're in the raffle until we stop the raffle when the show goes off the air. So that's what's good. You don't have to re-register. You don't have to call within a certain time, anything like that. The registration is very simple. We'll get out of it, and that is Mike has put up my email address, bob@allreview.com, standing for Restaurant Review, our other show. And in that, if you'll please give me your full name, of course, your email address so we can contact you about your winning, and thirdly, your zip code so we get an idea of where our watchers and our winners come from. So do that, and by next week, we'll announce the winner if we get a winner, and we'll, of course, bring in some new picks. Okay, thank you for that indulgence, and we're back to Chef Tim DeLa Cruz. Now, Tim,
Yes.
I see your first name in 3 different mannerisms, okay? One is Tim, which I'm sure is the appropriate use, but I thought maybe you had a real name. No, not that that's not a real name, but maybe you had another first name than that. And then what I see is a common, perhaps we call it in America, a nickname.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And to me, it sounded like that the nickname, what I'm using, came from your original real name. Is that correct, or am I totally wrong? Would you elaborate on both those things?
My real name is actually Timothy, but I'd rather to be called Tim.
Okay.
Because every time I hear someone calling me Timothy, it's actually my mom's getting angry with me.
Well,
so that's what always reminds me of,
That we can understand. I'm a Robert, but my last name is so long, that's why I only say Bob B, because no one can pronounce or spell the last name, and I truncate it to Bob, which is a lot easier to pronounce and spell. And now, how about this nickname? I didn't want to share it unless you're willing to.
What about Tim?
There's not a T like in the particular steak. A steak. There's
Nah. I rather not share that. It's
Okay.
just,
no problem. That's for
something
his paramours and his private friends. Okay, no problem. Sorry, I should have asked. They cleared that up front. Hopefully, I didn't embarrass you. All right.
That's all right.
More importantly, now we've looked a little bit at your restaurant, and as I mentioned right before we go off the air, Tim and his restaurant were very kind enough to provide us with some B-roll. So, and for those, that's a small video, and that will take us through not only some of the things we've seen, the restaurant interior, but also you'll see him doing things like buying fish or doing kitchen work, a lot of the stuff you see on the typical cooking shows, but it's in a lovely, quick couple of minute fashion, so it'll be a nice finale at the end of the show. So don't cut off too early, because I think you'll enjoy that video. But meanwhile, let's go ahead and we want to start, bring up our first picture, and Tim, Chef, is it okay I call you Tim, or you rather Chef? What's comfortable there?
You can call me whatever you want, Bob.
Oh, thank you.
Call me whatever you want.
Thanks, you're so kind. You're so kind. Well, the first one is something that we don't, we have a lot of fish because, of course, we're a port city. But bass is not the normal fish that we get in our Gulf waters. And this is called a stone bass. So why don't you tell us the difference on that if you can, and how we've got this beautiful dish prepared.
It's just basically like each and every coastal line or each and every sea, you actually get like different type of species of fish, So basically, stone bass is actually more of a Mediterranean dish.
Okay.
Mediterranean fish. So it normally sees between the Mediterranean Sea, So I love sea bass. I love stone bass. So why not come out with something, quite interesting, like flavor profile to go with it. So, and I love Scottish scallops as well.
Yeah.
So, so mainly the produce that I'm actually trying to achieve here is actually, as local as possible.
I got it.
So that's how I actually came up with this dish. You got your stone bass, you got a little bit of seafood as well, which is the scallop. And then for me, smoked beetroot is something that, I really adore. And it's actually something that beetroot is normally used for Turkish cuisine as well.
Ah, okay.
For a lot of people that doesn't know that,
Yeah.
And labneh is basically a strained yogurt. So basically, when you actually hang your yogurt,
Yes.
so all of the liquid fall down, So labneh is actually more of like a Middle Eastern cheese.
I got it. More close to a cheese. I got it.
Yeah, close to a cheese.
I have to admit, I did not know what that was, so I was anxious for that explanation. I was going to ask you if you didn't, but you know, we have our own scallops down here, of course, from the Gulf. We'll debate on who's tastier, but the important thing, I think, it's a great combo to enhance that beautiful fish, and then also adding some of these other dishes, which brings some of your background into it. To I think just really a lovely. I mean, it's a basic fish dish which we all have to turn to, whether it's by choice or by whatever reason. It's something to fall back on if it's not your primary choice. So it's really a lovely, lovely dish. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one, because now we're a little more exotic. And then I do a lot of Asian and specifically Japanese sushi, etc. So I got into octopus early with some of the other folks might not. And this was just a beautiful plating of it. And why don't you tell us what went into this?
Yeah, so basically the plating of that one is, I don't know, does the viewers can actually see the dish?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you might not be able to see it because of the Sky. But that's why we asked for the digital pics in advance and the description. So our viewers, because that's the whole purpose. It's not a radio, it's a video, just like our TV show. And they've got to see that plate to see how striking it is. Because it's that visuals as well as the hearing about what's inside. Go ahead, sir.
So basically, the grilled octopus, the thought process behind that is obviously Turkish and Mediterranean people actually love their octopus. Yeah, so it's very common in Mediterranean cuisine.
Right.
And then I just want to make some, because they love their freshness in it. So instead of like just putting normal salad in it, so why not just make like a Mediterranean salsa that actually got some olives in it, some capers, something like quite tangy and quite, fresh taste to go with your octopus, because octopus is quite delicate. Yeah. So you don't really want to ruin the taste of it.
Exactly.
And then by putting some sea vegetables, like I've put some salty fingers in it. Salty fingers is like your sea jelly bean. It doesn't actually grow under the water. It's actually grow on the shoreline.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you've got your oyster leaf as well that actually really tastes like oysters.
Come on.
So it's kind of like a seafood, it's like a seafood heaven. For pescatarians, it's their heaven. And the plate that I've used is actually, as you can see, it's kind of like turquoisey.
Yes.
So it's kind of like blue. So basically, one thing that I want to resemble is kind of like the scene under the sea.
Under the sea. Yeah. And then, of course, plating it on that lovely turquoise dish, it just really brings the whole dish together, because he says, this is your aquarium or your
it's kind of like, it's kind of like you going under the submarine,
Exactly.
That's how I picture it.
All right, next we have a cod, another fish, and we don't get a lot. Most of the cod is up in north of America, New England, obviously that on the Atlantic seaboard that you all share some part of that waters. We don't have that down in the Gulf, so we have it. It's always imported. It doesn't grow in our fish.
It came in frozen,
Yeah, but what I love is I'm seeing here that you've integrated that with bouillabaisse, which is absolutely my favorite. I call it a soup, and I don't even know it's featured as an entree more than a soup. But anyway, go ahead. For those who might not even know bouillabaisse, let's talk about the whole dish, because I think it's a great integration here.
Bouillabaisse is actually, you're right, it's actually a soup. It's a fisherman's soup. It's actually came from French. Started from the French cuisine, which actually New Orleans actually got some French.
Thank you for knowing that.
Yeah, So what I've actually done with this is actually kind of like deconstruct it. So you have your soup, which is the bouillabaisse. It's the traditional way with your mirepoix, your normal onion, celery, carrots. And then with this one, I've actually used two types of. I've used a fish. I've used a whole fish to go with it, and some prawns, like the prawn shell.
Oh,
so you've got the goodness of the head, of those nice sea flavors,
exactly.
And then the salmon, the cod. What I've actually done is quick cured it with some salt, sugar, citrus.
Wow.
Cure it for half an hour. Wash it off.
Nice.
Actually slice it and put it raw. So what I've done with it, and as you can see, it's on a small, it's in a small bowl with a foam on top of it. So basically on the middle of it is actually a saffron foam. So it's saffron and lemon. So
Wow.
what I've done with it is actually made a cream of infusion of saffron and lemon rind. Make an infusion in it, put it on the sous vide for 24 hours, make it really zingy, and load it in a siphon gun, and then make a mousse out of it.
Now,
And then the red pepper is actually I turn into gel. So we actually juice some pepper, and then with that pepper you boil it, you put some agar, then you set it like a jelly, and then you blend it again. So it kind of like it looks like a fluid gel.
like a gel. Right. Excellent. Now, before we go any further, I wanted to ask this one, is that we really didn't talk about your vision with regard to menu changes, and like we have some restaurants here that change daily, very few, but most of them change at least seasonally. Would most of these dishes that we're seeing today, would they be standardly on your menu, or would they be specials, or only on certain seasons? Can you tell us, elaborate a little bit about that?
Most of it, some of it are actually on the a la carte menu, some of it are actually on the specials.
Okay. Well,
The thing is, like, obviously, every restaurant you need to have your standard menu. I do believe in that you need to have your foundation, where people actually go for that. It's normal a la carte menu. And then for me, is actually having a special menu is to showcase not only myself but the rest of the chefs as well when it comes to the creativity side.
Right.
So basically, on the special, it's kind of like your development side.
Oh yes, I think that's really how creativity started in America. That the head chef would give the sous chefs and even the line cooks a chance to express themselves, so they would grow. And what happened is the daily special was that avenue. It wasn't everybody say, oh, well, that's because it's the freshest thing in house, and that might also be true. But really, it really started for two parts. One, for the chefs to feel a part of it and to basically stay with the restaurant instead of saying, oh, I'm not appreciated, I'm just a worker here. The head chef, he gets all the credit, he's the face, etc., which is true in many situations. But at the same time, this was a chance for the chefs to express not only to their superior, but to the audience, so that way they got feedback in a lot of ways that they needed to be resilient for. And at the same time, giving the chance for the restaurant to expand beyond its fixed menu and always come up with something to do with somebody like myself. Because my original show back in 2000 and continues is only on new restaurants here in New Orleans, where I only specialize in 1 day to 1 year. So I'm always looking for the new menu and the creations, even in our establishment, where some of our critics and who also have TV or radio, so they go across the board. They're always showing the standards of celebrated. I like to have a different look at a new restaurant every time I go, and I eat out twice a day. We don't want to waste time with that. Yeah. But I'm really glad to hear that is your modus operandi, and giving your other chefs a chance to shine, and also to broaden the palette of your customers, especially your regulars who want to go beyond the regular menu. Yeah. So it's a great idea. Okay, now the
when we actually put it on the specials, and if it actually sells better, we put it on the menu.
On the menu. Well, that's a pretty good indicator that, hey, if it sells well, then maybe we ought to have it around for a little bit more than just one time. So the next dish is, and I'm going to proceed before you start, is a Filipino basic dish. We only have one really Filipino chef, and I'm going to give her name, a good friend of mine, Christina Quackenbush. I love that last name. And the name of her restaurant, right now it's going through several incarnations. She's had several locations, moves, and her latest venture still be called Milkfish, which is a very traditional fish, which I love from the Philippines. And she's now finally going, because she's realized, unfortunately, we don't have enough Filipino base, even though we do have a small community, but to only do the Filipino food, because it's limited to the American palate, or at least the New Orleans palate, excuse me. And therefore, she's going to fuse. She's going to offer both our New Orleans cooking, and she's doing a lot of those together now at pop-ups till she actually reestablishes her new location. So hopefully, and I always invite her to watch our shows and follow us, which she's, like I said, a very good friend. And a few other chefs will do maybe a pop-up or add a one-night special on a Filipino dish. But I know adobo, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's so familiar to New Orleans, because we we are a stew city. We like our gravies. Well, of course, we put a lot of rice on our gravies, which is not always indicative of other people. But this is that. This is that stick to your ribs, your comfort food that is so prevalent among the Filipino dishes. So I don't want to ruin it any further. You go ahead and tell us about your dish, please.
Yeah, so basically, this is actually like a paying homage to where it came from, and actually from, the traditional comfort food in the Philippines. So mainly in the Philippines, you actually get, it's either chicken or pork. I'm here in England, so I need to adopt into it.
I was wondering because that's all we have down here is usually chicken, but sometimes pork. No other, certainly not your dishes. Let's hear your version.
Yeah, so basic quail is very abundant here in England, especially on autumn, or you guys call it fall.
Fall, same thing, yes.
Yeah, yes, so it's very abundant here. So it's actually we call it game season, where we use a lot of pheasant, partridge, grouse, quail, venison, you name it. It's actually in season. So what I've actually done is infuse the Filipino flavor into that English protein, and actually turn its heads around. So for me, I always, it's kind of like a childhood memory when my parents do adobo, and after that we actually put it on a barbecue. We grill it.
Wow.
So for me, so basically the marination is adobo, and then we grill it. Yeah. So for me, it's like the way I do it is actually, I want to have that barbecue flavor and the adobo flavor in one, but I don't want to grill the actual bird. So what I've done is I've made a charcoal emulsion. So basically, it's oil infused with charcoal. So I made a mayonnaise out of it, and then I actually incorporated some onion ash. So you have this nice charcoaly flavor. So when you incorporate your normal adobo flavor with this charcoal flavor, it kind of like a marriage between the barbecue that I've actually experienced way back when I was a child.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm having a hard time imagining those two flavors together. I'm pleasantly surprised you can do it, and I'm hoping Christina hears this. Not that she might want to replicate it. I would hope that she would try it because I don't know anyone else that's going to do it. But I just think it's a great idea, which I had never even thought of. So this is really neat. So go ahead. I don't mean to cut you short because it's really good.
Yeah, basically, just playing with your produce and playing with your traditional strength as well, like where you actually came from. And it's just like I said, it's actually paying homage to where I came from, because I do believe that, Filipino cuisine actually have a big, very, very big space in the market where we can actually compete against French cuisine or against Italian cuisine.
Wow.
I truly believe in that. If Italian, French, or Japanese is actually big, how come Filipino cannot be big as well at the same time?
I have to ask this. Is there much of a Philippine population at all? And not just necessarily in your city, but England or at least London? Would you?
Yeah, there's actually quite a big Filipino population here, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you've also taken it visually upscale, because I have to admit, a lot of the, as I mentioned, what I call not soul food necessarily, but close to it, but comfort food, do not have the visuals that your dish has in this. And you've taken it to the plating concept that it's not just, the taste, but it's also you brought the look upscale so that it really looks beyond. So because a lot of us just dismiss the typical Philippine cuisine that we've been exposed to. Oh, that's just a chicken stew. Here, no one I think here would recognize that as an adobo dish. So that's what's even more amazing and more surprising.
I do really believe in my cuisine that it can compete as well, If other cuisine can do it, how come Filipino cuisine cannot do it?
Wow. Wow. Okay, well, we've got a few more, so we're going to go ahead and finish this because we got a little bit less than 20 minutes. So I think my technician said that maybe we don't have to do another commercial, which would be great, so we can get through this without interruption before we say goodbye. Let's go on to the next one, and I believe the next one is another scallops again, but without the. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Look at look at the colors here, folks. I mean, you've got the general look of the dish coordinated with the outside of the plating. And anyway, it's just this to me looks like a great spring or summer, so refreshing look. It's just a beautiful, beautiful view of it.
Yeah, again, this is actually kind of like a play on a Turkish flavor.
Okay.
You know, so basically you've got scallop has actually been just sliced raw. We actually get our scallops on a shell. It's properly hand dyed from Scotland, which actually I believe that is actually one of the best scallops in the world.
Wow, that's great.
Where the water is cold, you know,
Right.
it's nice and cool. So sometimes when I actually open and use a scallop from the shell, you can taste the sea as well. You know, you can taste that intensity.
That intensity,
Yeah.
right. Right.
Now, so what I've done, obviously, I just want to play. I just want to. I don't want to do a lot of things with the scallop, so just slice it raw, and then I've done some confit lemon to go with it. So we confit some lemon in olive oil, you know, 90 degrees, so it's like that. And then it's got some apples, so it's just compressed apple with its own apple juice as well.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, that natural sweetener is just phenomenal. Go ahead.
So basically, you've got two types of apple on that dish. So you've got your diced apple infused with apple juice, its own apple juice, and you've got apple gel as well on top of it.
Wow.
And then, you know, like just it's kind of like a play on a Mexican aguachile. So you know, you've got your cucumber and chili together. So you made a consomme out of it. So basically, it's just you blend you juice it out. You know, leave it to we put it on a muslin cloth or a cheesecloth, and just let it drip. So it's got to have a nice clear color in it, and then some rose petals. Actually, bring a little bit of floral in it.
That to me is something locally down here we don't. It's coming, but I've been a big fan not only from the aesthetics but of of putting edible flowers, if not just decorative flowers, to really enhance. And that's when I saw the rose. I said, "Oh, the guy's right up my alley here." Taking rose petals or rose oil, but certainly the petals themselves to really, you know, add a difference. I mean, just, like I say, it's just one of the coolest looking dishes I've seen in a long time.
Thank you. Yeah, because the thing is, like, a lot of people think, like, if you put flowers in it, it's like, what is that? It's just for decoration. For me,
right.
It's not.
Oh,
whatever you put on the plate should make sense.
Exactly. And I've been trying to tell folks that, but they think it's strict. Just like no one will eat parsley or because it's an accoutrement. It's just a visual. It's not. And there's so many wonderful tastes of it. Cilantro, all the others that have finally come into play. But it's not just for the plate. I tell them it's for you. You need to taste it. Anyway, so we're on the same page there with putting flowers, because I think it's a magnificent addition to almost any dish. Now we're going to go with another basic here that everybody should say, hey, he's already got seafood there, but I believe this is your version on a ribeye, huh?
Yeah, so basically this ribeye is actually from the Lake District.
Okay.
So it's actually here in England. So as I said, I'm trying to use as much local produce as I can.
Of course.
You know, because I do believe in locality and sustainability. So this ribeye has actually been dry aged for 60 days. And then basically this dish is kind of like a play on your bourguignon.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Beef bourguignon?
it's a play on a bourguignon.
Ah.
So basically, instead of like using diced beef, you know,
Yes.
sometimes it can be so dry because you have to braise it down for a long time. So why not use steak, you know? So what we've done with the steak is we actually confit it in aged beef fat as well.
Wow.
And then done is here. And then on top of it, you've got two types. You got onions in it. So actually, it's kind of like the flavor profile of a bourguignon, but done in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good. But at least what I wanted to show, that I'm glad you included, was you do have some meat other than fowl on your selections. So it's something you're comfortable with, that you're not just with the fish predominantly. So I really like to see that. And, of course, because there's some people that will not eat anything else but steak. So we got to...
I know.
We got to, as you know, as a restaurateur, you've got to appeal to what your clients want, and no matter whether you like it or not. But I think it's a great variation what you've shown, and to compare it to beef bourguignon is just phenomenal. One of my favorite. But it looks so heavy. Yours looks so light. So this would be a lot more tempting visually to me than the typical beef bourguignon, because it's a real meaty, real heavy dish. Okay, now the next one is a tart made from Jerusalem artichokes. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, you guys
now,
call
this
it
is unfamiliar
sunchokes.
territory for a lot. Excuse me, a lot of our natives here and people who have not eaten out too well. So you got to really give us a little background on this particular dish as well as the view of it.
Yeah. So basically, the Jerusalem artichokes is what you call sunchokes in the States.
Correct.
So basically, a lot of people think like, what is sunchoke? Sunchoke is actually the root of sunflower.
Sunflower, right?
So I think it does have a nice, creamy, nice, earthy flavor into it. You know.
Yes.
So what I've actually done with it is just make like a nice pastry tart, what you normally use for your normal pastry. But instead of that, is actually I want to bring some umami and earthy flavor into it. So what I've done at the bottom of it, you've got your Jerusalem artichoke puree. Then you've got slices of raw and pickled mushrooms. And then it's been done with sep powder. Sep is
what
actually
is that? May I ask, that was something I'd never heard of. Sep, CEP powder, everyone. Can you tell us what that is?
Sep is actually porcini.
Ah, porcini. Okay, got it. Sorry.
So yeah, and then you've got so that's it. Raw and pickled mushrooms, but just normal mushrooms. Then you've got some sep powder, which is a porcini powder. So what we've done with the porcini powder is we actually dehydrate the porcini. What I've actually done with it is actually fermented first, lacto fermented. So basically, dry fermentation release all of the moisture of the mushroom, dehydrate it, and then blitz it into powder. Yeah, and then on one of the inspiration from this dish is actually from Chef Magnus Nilsson. He's actually one of the best chefs in the world.
Yes, definitely.
Is his restaurant Faviken in Sweden. So I've seen his program and stuff. So I was like, okay, he do a tart and he do a cream that is almost burnt.
Right.
So I tried to combine those two. It's kind of like an inspirational dish from him.
Homage to him as well. Yes, excellent. Well, I was thrilled with it because, like I said, first of all, sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes aren't as popular here. Of course, most of the West Coast are. California and all areas, they have a lot more prevalence and their dishes are much more integrated with regard to those type of trends. We're in the mid, even though we're pretty much of a trendsetter in the nation, at least in culinary, there's still a lot of things that aren't coming here or aren't natural to here that take us a little while. And so not only the artichoke itself, but like you mentioned, sep powder, which is something I'm not familiar with, maybe some of our chefs do, but that whole concept of putting in tart, that is pretty foreign to us. Not that it's not delicious, but just something that we wouldn't experience in any of our restaurants. And I don't know if any of our chefs have done so much as well as you. So in that regard,
to be completely honest, because I'm actually the type of chef that I don't follow recipe, but I love creating recipe.
Well, I mean, certainly old home chefs, whether it be mothers, grandmothers, fathers, always
but there's
say
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that because that's where it came from as well.
But I mean, their whole thing is that
it's to the tradition, but it's up to you on how you gotta interpret it in a much more modern way.
But that's the big deal with them. They didn't believe in recipes per se. Everything was their creation and measurements. You know, their measurements were in their brain and how to measure it. And so I know for years we would try and copy or ask our mothers or grandmothers, how do you do this dish? And never could replicate it because it was just how she felt that day and what she had available, and it's the true genius of a chef. I mean, that's the stuff that you don't. And that's the problem with too many people today. They've got to have a recipe. They got to have the exact ingredients, and sometimes they're disappointed because it just doesn't taste the same. Because a lot of these things you just can't enumerate to such a degree that you're going to give the same dish more than one time. So anyway, all right. We only have one more, but I do want to remind people I'm very negligent. I was speaking to Chef Tim DeLa Cruz out of Skewd Kitchen, his restaurant in England, outside of London, England. And he has been a delight, and we'll give him his plaudits just before we sign off. But I think we have one more dish with you, Chef. Let's go ahead and finish it off, and then we'll just chit-chat before the final minutes, okay?
Yeah. So basically, this is another fish dish. As you can see, I'm actually a fish guy.
A fish guy.
I love my fish.
Well, we do too here, because we're being a port city, and we have so many fishermen. It's a tremendous economic boon for our city. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So basically, this dish is actually kind of like a pay homage to a Spanish, a Spanish stew, if you like. Because basically back in the Philippines, we actually been colonized by Spaniards for almost 300 years.
Right.
So pretty much we have a strong Spanish culture as well,
sure,
and traditions. And to be fair, my mom has actually got a little bit of Spanish blood in her. So basically with this one, I just want to bring like some liveness, a little bit of heavy and light touch onto a dish. So I do believe it's kind of like a play on surf and turf, if you like.
Right.
So you've got your chorizo, you got your fish, then you got your shellfish broth, and then carrot. Carrot that actually been confit in aged beef fat. So when you actually trim your steak and stuff, those fat is actually very delicious, in my opinion. It's got this nice funky flavor, but in a good way, And then why not cook a carrot in it? Why not make a carrot taste much more interesting?
Yes. I mean, you got beautiful color there, but most people will find a carrot not necessarily the epitome of flavor or taste or experimentation. Mm-hmm. So it's a great idea to include it as often as you can because of its value. And using, of course, the Spanish chorizo sausage is just, well, that's way up our style. We have our French boudin down here, but we also have a lot of, our city was founded by the French, but then occupied by the Spanish. So we do have tremendous fusion and influence of both of those culinary cultures before we throw in the Indies, the African American, to what we call our gumbo of flavors. So chorizo is just a well-respected sausage down here in New Orleans and used in much more than Spanish or Central American cooking. It's used much more broadly, which is great because it is such a wonderful sauce, especially breakfast. There's breakfast and eggs, places that serve American breakfast will often now substitute chorizo than the typical link sausages or any other type of sausage. So it's a great expanse and been a wonderful introduction here, and I'm sure throughout the States.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, let's go ahead, and I think it's almost time to wrap up. I haven't gotten a signal, but when I see on a little clock on the wall, again, folks.
Can you give me 1 second?
What's that?
Just need 1 second. Okay. It's cool. No worries.
Well, again,
someone's just knocking.
First, thanks to your chefs who I know are pitching in for you, so you could give us this time. Even at, I thought the way you in the prelude you were hopping up and down. I thought we were going to have a real a broken interview, but you've been really great about it. And again, folks, you're watching, as I mentioned, the debut of Chef's Chat International with our first out-of-America chef from England. It's Chef DeLa Cruz, who we've heard his background, we've heard his experience, and we heard how he's bringing those traditions to a city and to his the fish that are available to him, as well as to other condiments, really upscaling it. Also bringing a lot of Filipino food, which we don't have that much exposure to. So hopefully, folks, this has been very educational as well as inspirational from a view and a tasting. The only thing we don't have, the most important ingredient, we can't taste it. But other than that, we've had excellent descriptions. And once again, Chef, thank you so much for helping us out, start this. And again, to the chefs there. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get to taste your food, which would be the final step in our journey.
You never know.
Anything else you want to tell the folks before you sign off?
Again, it's actually been an honor to actually be part of the show.
Very nice.
Something from actually I haven't done a TV show outside of London, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's very good. I'm actually quite speechless, to be honest. This is actually the first time I've actually.
Well, this is probably, even though we don't try to make it tough, it's your toughest interview for a chef. And that's why we have a lot, even local, besides national food shows or food segments on our local shows, where a chef will come in and will prepare a dish, and he's comfortable because he's working as he does his normal preparation of that presentation. But there's very few, if none, that I've seen that give such an in-depth thing. A president, that's what was my whole goal starting it 16 years ago, was to hear from the horse's mouth, from the chef itself, how he visions the dish, what it looks like, and the only thing we don't deliver is the taste. But it is uncomfortable because instead of just doing it in front of you, which, you know, is interesting of its own right, to me, it's not as valuable as hearing what goes into that plate rather than how many pieces of salt to put in it, etc. Anyway, as I mentioned, my ultimate gratitude for you showing up. We're going to close out with, as I mentioned earlier, the little video which you were nice to present about your restaurant, your bag, so people will see you in action. So the things we just don't do on our normal show, they'll get a little adjunct to that. So take care. We'll be talking soon. Got to give you some more thanks and plaudits for helping us out. For those who watch us next week, you know, it's I think it's Know Your Nonprofit. I've forgotten what it is. You check our schedule and see. But we'll look for y'all next Wednesday. Thank you for watching, and watch this great video before you turn us off. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.